You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series. The QB Power Hour is a free biweekly webinar series for accounting professionals presented by Michelle Long and Dan DeLong, who are very passionate about the industry, QuickBooks, and apps that integrate with QuickBooks. You can find out all the details about the webinar series at qbpowerhour.com. So without further ado, here's Michelle and Dan. All right. Well, welcome to another QB Power Hour. Today is like a webinar a year in the making. When we first got wind of this partnership, probably about a year ago between Bookkeep and DAVO, I was super excited to really unpack this. But now Jason and Don from DAVO are going to, Jason from Bookkeep, Don from DAVO are going to be joining us here to really kind of unpack on how this is going to play out. So we appreciate you being here today. Michelle, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Michelle Long. I'm very glad to have you guys all here. Owner of Long for Success, author of 5 books. You can check them out. And very glad to be here, especially since I made it home on crutches, which is very difficult to do. It's one of the hardest things ever is to walk down a plane with crutches. And I did it.
Wow.
So that's an accomplishment.
Did you actually need to go down steps, or did you just the what is that, the ramp, not the gangway? I can't remember.
Yeah, they wheeled me down, but then getting down the aisle on crutches was very, very challenging. Avoiding arms and legs and feet and toes was very challenging.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably, excuse me.
Yeah,
Pardon me, excuse me.
Yeah, people saw me coming and they were moving. So anyway.
Oh, funny. And my name is Dan DeLong, owner of DanWit. I worked at Intuit for nearly 18 years, co-hosting today, also on the co-hosting duties of the workshop Wednesdays over at School of Bookkeeping. And both Michelle and I are nominated for the ProAdvisor, the top 100 ProAdvisors. So if you haven't voted, I put that in the chat there. Please do. I think it's about high time that Michelle be the ProAdvisor of the year. I don't know. What do you think?
No.
You have affected so many people's lives. I think this is about time you get the credit you deserve. So, if you haven't voted for Michelle, please do.
No.
And we'll get her up on stage.
No.
So let's talk about our guests here. Jason, you've been with us, a friend of the show now. We should call you now. This is like your fourth time on the Power Hour. But for those that don't know,
we've done a lot of these. That's for sure.
So tell us a little bit about yourself for those that may not have seen you before.
Yes, I'll just real quick. I mean, I've been in accounting since I got out of college in different ways, mostly around building software for accounting at Pricewaterhouse. And then I was working on Wall Street doing accounting as well for a trading desk, sort of real-time trade reconciliation, which is very similar to payment reconciliation that we do for retail. I started a grocery store, a wine store. I still have a wine store in California, which we're going to show today in the demo. It uses Bookkeep and DAVO for sales tax. And now I'm the founder and CEO of Bookkeep, which is doing automated accounting for revenue and sales tax for small businesses, e-commerce businesses, restaurant, retail. And that's me.
All right. And new to the show, Don, tell us a little bit, introduce yourself for the folks watching.
Sure. Hey, everybody. So my name is Don. I'm the business development and partnership manager at DAVO by Avalara. I've been with DAVO about 3.5 years. We were acquired by Avalara about 2 years ago. We'll talk a little bit later on about the differences between Avalara and what DAVO does and kind of how all the pieces fit together. But we started working with Bookkeep recently, and we're excited to dive into that. So good stuff.
Thanks, this is what happens when you click a link while you're you're sharing. So let's just put that back in there. Yes, it's live, folks. One of the things we were going to have David Joseph join us here, and not to put any shade on Don joining us, but we appreciate you joining us. But one of the things that I really love about Jason from Bookkeep and David Joseph from DAVO is that they understood their own pain, right? Like they were in businesses and realized, hey, this is a problem for me. And then, ended up coming up with their own solution. And I really love that about Bookkeep and DAVO is that's the the start of these is that they really understood their own pain, like with the wine shop with Jason at Bookkeep, basically created his own solution, and the same thing for DAVO. So I really applaud, the route that you've taken to get here, because it really speaks to solving the pain, because you really understand what that pain actually is. So
by the way, I'm sitting in for David, who's on vacation in Europe. So that's basically where he's at. But to your point, Dan, long story short, he ended up in sales tax trouble, owned a restaurant, got into sales tax trouble, wasn't managing it properly, and said, why can't somebody automate this whole thing? Right? That's really how DAVO began. And he's the DAV in DAVO. So David, great guy, but I'll do my best to fill in for him. Right? So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Who's the Is there no? Yeah. Who's the
Owen? Yeah. Owen was the other co-founder. So they combined their names to form the name. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I didn't know that.
Our fun fact of the day about DAVO. Yeah.
There we go. Oops, going the wrong way. Okay, a few of the details about the QB Power Hour before we get kicked off here today. It's every other Tuesday at noon Eastern. Our upcoming webinars are on our website. They aren't eligible for CPE, but you can check out the upcoming ones on the QBPowerHour.com homepage, but also PDFs of the slides, recordings of podcasts, and other resources are available at QBPowerHour.com/resources. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have specific questions for the topics that we're talking about here today, especially if it requires some follow-up, please put that in the Q&A. If you have, general things to say about, yes, I agree, Michelle should be ProAdvisor of the Year, please put that in the comments, in the chat, right? But if you have a specific question, we ask that you put that in the Q&A, because we do have some people in the background that could answer those questions. But also, if we do need to follow up, if there is a specific, maybe, a deeper dive question than what we can really go into live, please put that in the Q&A. All right. So our agenda today is we'll kind of unpack what is Bookkeep, what is DAVO, and then really just kind of talk about how those two services are working together today. So let me go ahead and launch the first poll, which is on this screen here. And there we go. We'll launch that one. So what version of books are you currently using today to service your clients? Is it desktop, online, both, or something else? And I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and that'll let Jason lead the discussion here once we're finished with the poll question. So talk to us, Don, actually a little bit about the beginnings of DAVO. You were kind of teasing it up there that he got himself into sales tax trouble. So talk a little bit about the genesis of DAVO.
Sure. So the story that David's told is that he owned this restaurant. It was, I think, 100 and something seat restaurant in Montclair, New Jersey. It was very popular. And one Saturday night, a tax collector sat outside the restaurant with a copy of the menu, counted the number of people that went into the restaurant, and then added up an appetizer, entree, and dessert. Came in. He was, by the way, I guess, a customer of the restaurant as well, right? Comes into the restaurant the next day and he's like, David, I did all this math and you owe $70,000 in sales tax. And David said, first off, that was a Saturday night. Not everybody orders an appetizer, entree, and dessert. So that number's way off. And he said, well, you have to prove it, right? You have to show us the record, show us that, what the number should be. And you still owe this money. So David, I guess, said, he's like, why, ADP automates payroll. Why can't somebody do the same thing for sales tax? That's really how the whole idea came together to start DAVO. That was, I think, back in around 99 or 2000. And then over time, technology caught up and he saw the opportunity and started this company that has done quite well. So that's really the genesis of DAVO.
I love for the first part of the Marvel movies, like where the superhero gets created, like the bite of the spider or the gamma rays accident. I think that's the most interesting part. So like finding out like how these companies all came to be is super fascinating for me. So I appreciate you sharing the story of the the radioactive spider biting the sales tax in this case.
Right. The bite of the tax collector. We'll call it that, right?
There we go.
Whatever you want to go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we'll flip it over to Jason over at Bookkeep. So talk a little bit about what Bookkeep does and remind people that, where you began, right?
Well, Bookkeep started actually similarly. I mean, going back before Bookkeep, I had a company that was a point of sale company, and I built that company out of my grocery and wine business because I was just frustrated with point of sales and payment providers that didn't work well together and you couldn't understand the fees. And then when I left that company and that company got sold to Lightspeed, I started doing the books in my wine store and realized I could automate a lot of the books. But the one part that was not being done by anyone else was getting data out of my point of sale or my e-commerce system into my books properly with proper accrual entries. Everyone has a QuickBooks integration. Every one of these logos you see here probably has a QuickBooks integration. And what do? As probably everyone on this call knows, they dump every single transaction into QuickBooks. And then you have a huge mess. And still to this day, people are afraid to connect Bookkeep because they're afraid we're going to dump every single transaction in QuickBooks and mess up their books. But we don't do that. What we do, so from that experience, basically, I started Bookkeep and I'll show you in detail what we do. But what we do is we take all those transactions at the end of the day and we create a perfect single summarized journal entry and post that to your book.
That word, single.
One. For sales channel.
For sales channel. Yeah.
Yep. And this slide here just shows you everyone here probably has a client that's using one of these sales channels or payment systems. And, on the left, and there's also a hybrids of the two, but it's important to understand in accrual accounting, which is what you're doing for your customers, you're going to have sales channels, you're going to make sales, and a sales channel, it's important to understand, is something that is usually a checkout cart or a point of sale system. So it's calculating all the line items, all the sales tax, maybe keeping track of the customer and basically then choosing a payment method. Whereas a payment method is something that comes in that says, okay, I need to collect $89. I'm going to do that on PayPal. Whereas PayPal as a payment method doesn't know what the sales tax was, doesn't know the breakdown of items, doesn't know if it was food versus bar, whatever. And so you have sales channels and payment methods. And what we do is make sure that your sales channels numbers end up getting deposited in your bank account by whatever the payment method is. And so this screen is a kind of a combination of the two. And of course, you've also got what are called marketplaces, where they act as the sales channel and a payment method together. And as everyone here also knows, you get a deposit that looks nothing like what you expect because they take out their fees, they take out their marketing fees, they take out their payment fees, and you get whatever's left over. So if you want to provide accurate books for your client that show the actual gross revenue before fees, you want to use, and you want to do it without pulling your hair out, you want to use a tool that automates and posts that data to your accounting system. So, when you go for, if you're booking deposits as income, which sometimes you have to do because, as I know, I talk to accountants all day long. I don't have access to Shopify. They won't give me the login. Well, yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, if you want to get the books done, you got to look at the bank deposits, right? But we try and make it very easy for you to ask for that access so that the owner can give it to you. But if you're booking your deposits as income, you're missing a whole chunk, potentially 30%. And when you're going for loans, when you're going for, to show, how your business is performing, you want to have accurate financials that actually show the gross amount minus discounts, minus whatever, before you get to that net amount. So that is what we help you do. Let's see.
Can you go back? Would you mind going back to the slide prior to that? Because I do want to talk a little bit about the one before that, because you've been on the Power Hour three times before that. So if people really want to get a good idea of what actually Bookkeep does, in the slides I created or put each of the other ones in there. So if people want to go to the prior ones to really try to talk about managing your multiple payment methods, and that was an awesome one where Don joined us from the plane.
That's right.
Some of the history making QB Power Hours where Don was able to join us to help out with from a plane, but also integrating report-based sales channels. I mean, those are some of the things that you've come on and talked about. So wanted to kind of throw that out there. People were going to get a better understanding of what Bookkeep does. The prior Power Hours would be a great place to start.
Yep.
But continue on to your next slide there, because this really kind of encapsulates what it is that where Bookkeep fits in with all this.
Yeah. So we're essentially
Right in the middle.
Is in the middle. Yeah. We're a platform. So we pull in data from these logos or these sales channels and payment methods, whether through a direct integration, Shopify, PayPal, Square, Squarespace, Lightspeed, Amazon Seller. We have direct API integrations to those and many more, BigCommerce as well, Walmart, where you can put in the credentials, and once we have the credentials, we can connect and store a key, and then we can access that data, essentially, technically. And the other way that we can get data, though, is what we realized over time is that not every sales channel or payment method has an ability to integrate through an API. So we now also have every single entity you create on our system, you get a special email address at bookkeep.com, and you can send in the summary reports that you might be downloading already into our platform. And if we recognize that report, and we can write these very quickly, we will automatically data parse that and turn it into the same sort of data that we get from a Square or Shopify. And I'll show you an example. So that data comes in to Bookkeep, and then we post those journal entries into QuickBooks or Xero. And what we're going to talk about today is we also can send that data to DAVO if you opt in for that. And we also do have an API where you can get that summarized data in a normalized format, so standardized format through an API. So that's kind of how that works. And let's see, next. Can I just go there? Yeah. So we will jump into a demo, but I'll show you here. Essentially with Bookkeep, not only do we do that process of helping you get that data into your accounting system, but we also kind of give you a view of the client's connections in one screen. There's no system that gives you the ability to be like, I need to connect all these apps. And we're starting to learn also when you connect QuickBooks, if it's possible, sometimes we don't see all of it, but we'll alert you to the fact that, hey, we see Stripe deposits. Click here to connect Stripe. Or, hey, we see some PayPal deposits, but you don't have PayPal connected. So we're going to alert you, hey, you might want to connect PayPal because we're seeing deposits from PayPal. So we're even going to help you see, into the client's books and say, hey, we can help automate these deposits. So everything, all your app connections are in one place. And this screen actually shows you that we're actually really, really strong with Shopify. In Shopify, you happen to have the ability to have point of sale and e-commerce through the one connection to Shopify. And we have the ability to segment your point of sale systems, your each location separately from the e-commerce revenue, as well as a lot of times if your client's selling on Shopify, they might be selling on Instagram and Facebook. And we can also handle those transactions. And fun fact, we just learned that Instagram and Facebook are withholding a huge amount of fees, and they're also paying the sales tax, and Shopify has no reporting on that. We are trying to figure out if we can get our own system to properly account for that because the data is not there, but it's definitely something to look at if you know your clients are selling on Instagram and Facebook through Shopify, that you don't double pay your sales tax. So
if they're selling in the metaverse.
Exactly. Through using Shopify as the portal into selling, because Shopify is a connection.
Gotcha.
It's something that, but that's the thing is we're experts in this stuff. And our customer care team, yes, we do integrate with BigCommerce as well. Our customer care team know all these systems inside and out. So if you ever have a question, I don't understand what's going on here, you can always chat with our customer care team. We know all these platforms very well. We know the ins and outs and all the weird stuff that they do. So you're getting more than just automation. You're also getting a customer care team that really understands what's going on. As I said, every system that we connect to, we give you a standardized mapping window. Everyone here has connected some app to QuickBooks. And then once you make the connection, you're like, oh my God, this is such a pain in the butt to map. Or wait a second, I mapped that a year ago. I can't remember where are those settings again because it's not doing what I want. In our system, you're going to come to one place. If the PayPal entry needs to be remapped, you're going to come to our system. If the Square entry needs to be remapped, you're going to come to our system. And those mapping screens just look very similar. And based on what everyone here as accountants understands, gross sales, refunds, discounts, returns. A lot of systems call it different things. WooCommerce doesn't even have a summary report. Upserve calls it gross receipts, which includes sales tax, right? So we strip that out and put it into what you expect it to be. And that is also value add, especially, in these times where it's really hard to find staff and train them to understand the intricacies of all these different systems that your clients are using. We really help normalize it and make it simple. So you're not having to train them. Well, that's how BigCommerce works. That's how Stripe works. And here's where the report is in Square that you need to get. Oh, and if you have loans on Square, then you have to go click 3 times and get to this report and download it to see what the loan fees were or the loan split was. We take care of all of that automatically in here. So, and we post the data to QuickBooks and Xero. And this is an example of one of those summarized journal entries in Xero. We never duplicate postings. We always, once we post something to an accounting platform, we link to that entry. And then if there's ever, for whatever reason, an adjustment in our system, we'll repost to that entry. We also have the ability that I can show you if we get to it. You can do bulk deletion. You can bulk edit. If you decide you want to reclassify your gross sales and break it out by food, beverage, et cetera, you can do that in our platform and then repost the last previous month of entries all in just a couple clicks. So we have, a lot of bulk entry capability. So
I think that's probably something to reiterate is that the avoidance of duplication is one of the things I think is really a key feature of Bookkeep, because changes are changes, right? You realize, okay, well maybe they did have a loan, and those types of things, and they need to go back to editing a transaction to make sure that the debits and credits are equal and posted properly. But if that happens, you connect to one transaction, so you're going to be editing the original transaction rather than potentially causing a duplicate by making a change or having to pull it out in order to redo it. So saving valuable seconds of undoing and redoing.
Yeah, no, we always, if you edit it in our system, there really shouldn't be editing. Ideally, you don't edit. The only time sometimes that happens is if sometimes we have time zones off and we ran at the wrong time, we might want to recalculate that summary. But we'll always repost to the same entry. I know some competitors, don't pay attention to the fact that, if you change something, it's going to repost an entry, and you don't want that in your QuickBooks. So that's the system, and that's Bookkeep. And at some point, we'll show a demo maybe after we talk about the DAVO stuff. And what we're here to talk about today with Don is that we partner with DAVO because it's been a 2-year process of getting that partnership together. But it made so much sense to me because I know what DAVO does. I use it in my own wine store. I've seen other clients who have been saved by DAVO because they didn't pay their sales tax and they got in trouble. And as part of actually their, getting back in the good graces, they actually write in their letter, and we've set up DAVO, going forward to make sure that you get accurate payments, because you can get in big trouble by not paying your sales tax. And I've been audited in my wine store for sales tax, and I had that same question. I'm like, what about that Chinese restaurant across the street? Like, I'm sure they're not paying their sales tax. He's like, don't worry. We sit outside those restaurants and we count. We count how many times those drivers come in and out. And we're making sure, because I'm like, I pay every penny of my sales tax in my wine store, and I still got audited, and it was a pain in the butt. But anyway, so this is a super important process. And the other thing that I'll say, besides being a business owner who paid sales tax, is Bookkeep started as an accounting firm. And as part of that accounting firm, we actually I had bookkeepers who had clients. And as part of that experience, one of those bookkeepers was not paying the sales tax that I thought she was, and she was supposed to be paying. And we got in big trouble because she didn't pay the sales tax for that client. And I found this out months later, and it was a big problem. And that's part of and I didn't even realize that it was what a risk it was for our business to not be on top of if your team was supposed to pay sales tax and did they do it or not. So all of those reasons, it just makes so much sense to automate this process and work with a team. Yeah. Bookkeep does, and I'll go through this here. Bookkeep does a great job of calculating and capturing all that information. And DAVO really are the experts in filing and paying those sales tax in every single state in the country. So here you can see we're already capturing your sales. So if you're connected to Bookkeep, we already collect all the data. So we have it for you. Right now, we're only doing it with Shopify and Square, but we will quickly have BigCommerce, WooCommerce, and others up and running. If someone wants, if someone wants to use one of those, we can get it going pretty fast. But we're starting with Shopify and Square. The sales tax that we collect, and I'll show you a demo, then DAVO then pulls that data from us. So you don't have to connect your apps to multiple systems. Bookkeep is the centralized app connector, and you're getting two services out of it. And that's really important because apps do get disconnected sometimes. It's a pain in the butt to always, I have to connect Square to DAVO and I got to connect Square to Bookkeep. And it's just easier to connect everything in one place. And we're really trying to be a centralized app connection platform for that. So everything is collected and we send the data to DAVO. And then DAVO at the end of the month, DAVO takes the daily sales amount that was collected as well as the sales tax collected, and then they will remove that money from the checking account. So it's called set aside. And Don, I don't know if Don wants to jump in and explain it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Happy to chime in on that. So one of the unique things about DAVO is we do move the sales tax money out of the merchant's bank account every day. And there's a few reasons for doing that. The biggest one is we don't want that money sitting in an account that a business owner thinks, oh, this is mine. I can spend it on whatever I need to spend it on. And then that tax bill comes due and the money's not there. And then you end up in a position where those fines that Jason was talking about can show up. And fines can be pretty ugly. We hear 20 to 30% of what's owed. Those fines are huge. So if you were missing $10,000, you not only owe that 10 grand, you owe possibly 12 or 13 grand, right? So it's a pretty bad position to be in. So we move the money every day. We're setting that aside. And then when it comes time to do the filing and payment part, where I think Jason was going next, we have the funds already in place. So we can take care of those filings and payments all in one go. All right.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories is a friend of mine used to work at the Arizona Department of Revenue. So, when it came monthly sales tax time, some businesses would come in and, remit their payment and form filings. And inevitably there was a business that would say, I can't afford to pay the sales tax. And then you would have this discussion of what are you doing spending the state's money? And what DAVO does here is, it's brilliant, right? Like it protects the business from themselves of potentially realizing that money in my bank is money that I can spend and not realizing the whole idea of what actually a liability is, as far as the accounting side of things goes. So it protects them from themselves. But I do want to, there's a couple questions, Don, that I want to kind of make sure we unpack here, because there is a by Avalara, on the slide there. So we want to talk about, where DAVO's specialty is, because when you hear this Avalara and there's this nebulous company over top of DAVO, you're part of Avalara, but you don't do exactly the same thing. So that's why you are now, a subsidiary of Avalara because of what it is that you do. If you can kind of unpack, where on the sales tax lanes DAVO's really driving here.
Sure. Happy to do that, Dan. Yeah. So we were acquired by Avalara about 2 years ago. I like to say that, think of the various lanes in the sales tax journey. We talk about the sales tax journey a lot within Avalara. You have tax rates or figuring out tax content. So what are the rates you're supposed to be collecting? And there's a ton of different rates. There's 18,000 different tax jurisdictions in the US alone. So trying to stay on top of that, those jurisdictions move. It's crazy. The rates change. That's what Avalara does very well. They have a huge team that manages that and stays on top of those rates. There's a product called AvaTax that essentially helps feed those rates into various products, like especially in the e-commerce world. So when you think of you're buying something online, you put a bunch of things in your shopping cart, and then that tax, how much tax you're supposed to be charged appears in that shopping cart. That's often Avalara in the background doing that. So that's where Avalara primarily plays, is in that tax rate or tax content space. Avalara also does returns, which is where, so DAVO's focused on the returns piece. But the way DAVO handles returns is a little different, where we're traditionally less e-commerce focused and focused more on those brick and mortar retail shops and brick and mortar restaurants, right? So that's the area that DAVO focuses on. Avalara purchased us to help grow the business in those areas in that restaurant and brick and mortar space. And we want to tie that in with the e-commerce space, which is where the partnership with Bookkeep gets exciting, right? Because we're starting to pull these pieces together, the things that Avalara does well, the things that DAVO does well, and bring all those together. So that's really the best way to think of it. Tax rates and content, that's Avalara's strength. When it comes to restaurants and returns and money movement and treasury, that's really where DAVO comes in.
Got it. I think it's an important delineation, to make sure that, people are aware, who's who in the sales tax zoo. And as we've had Avalara on the QB Power Hour, it's, we unpacked that, like the weirdest sales tax situations. That's not what DAVO is going to help you do, is figure out, who you sell, where you sell it, and what do you sell, to them as far as calculating the rates. That's Avalara's strong suit. But once you have that figured out and you're able to tell your sales channel that rate, and that will feed into Bookkeep, that's where the piece is. Because as David has mentioned, that there is no value to a business owner to take the time to pay the sales tax, right? I mean, Jason would rather be selling wine, I'm sure, in his wine store, rather than figuring out what do I owe in the various state jurisdictions of what do I, and filing and doing that. So we talked a little bit about having to pay a sales tax penalty. So we'll throw that up as a poll question of whether you've had to do that or not. Was it just that one time, Jason, that happened to you and your firm?
Well, I didn't even, in my firm. Yeah. But actually my very first sales tax, when I first opened my first retail business, this was in 2004. So I had to postmark it and put it in the mailbox. And on the day it was due, I was late calculating it in the back of my wine store in Brooklyn. And I went to the mailbox, and I checked it. And it said they'd already picked up for the day. And I was like, damn. So I went all the way to the post office downtown by MSG in Manhattan and put it in the slot right there. It was still open until 10 p.m. and they didn't postmark it. And I got fined $700. And that was my very first sales tax. It was a 3-month payment, and it was, 10% fine. So it must have been, I remember $700. So it must have been $7,000 in sales tax. And that's why I knew that DAVO makes so much sense, because I always did pay it myself. So I had the experience. I mean, it's been so long, but as a business owner, it's just something that should be automated. It's not your money. It should come out of your account. And there is a psychology. I mean, anyone here who knows the profit first mentality of moving money out of your checking account into different accounts, this is part of profit first. You should remove that money, because trust me, business owners at every level are always looking at that checking account and in a way saying, this is how I'm doing. So if that money is in there that doesn't belong to you, whether it's money that you have to pay to vendors or money that you have to pay for sales tax, you want to get it out of that checking account. So this is a really great part of profit first.
Michelle, you would agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yes. And actually, I wanted to add something too. Rich had posted a question in there asking if DAVO track Nexus. And Lori said, no, it doesn't track Nexus. But I wanted to add that in QuickBooks now, in QBO, the Sales Tax Center will track economic nexus. So if you want to check that out, go into the sample company and turn on the Sales Tax Center. Just say yes and set up Arizona and California sales taxes. You just have to answer and set up a couple of them. And you can see the economic nexus. This is under that Wayfair rule, where if you have enough sales in a state, you now have nexus in that state and have to do the sales taxes. And QBO now will track that for you. And you can see it in the sample company. It will let you know the sales, the transaction count, and when a threshold has been met for that state, to where you now have to do sales taxes in that state based on the sales. So that's just something to be aware of, is now QuickBooks is tracking that based on sales for you in the Sales Tax Center.
Yeah,
so Michelle, if you don't mind, I'd love
ahead.
to give a little plugs for an Avalara product called Business Licenses. So let's say you do hit that economic nexus thinking you need to set up another state. There's a great product that Avalara has called business licenses. Don't quote me on the pricing, but I think it's around $300 a state. This tool will help you get everything set up for that state so that you can file and do what you need to do. So great product.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that from Avalara. Prior to the acquisition, our COO actually signed up for business licenses, tried it out, and he's like, "This thing's great." So
Okay,
wanted to
perfect.
put that on your radar.
And I can vouch for that service because we decided not to use it. And it's like, how card can and there's 3 different states that we had a physical presence in. So, we had to do 3 different states. And of course they were all different. And it's one state that rhymes with Carolina decided to put us on monthly filing, even though we didn't have any sales in that state yet. And because they didn't have, their theory was, well, there's no precedence to put you on annual filing, even though, you tell us that you don't have any sales in that state. And so, 3 months go by, we're thinking, okay, well, there's, we'll wait until the year, right? And here comes the letters, right? Asking for the minimum of tax, which is $550 a month, right? So like, oh my goodness, now we have to figure this out. And now $350 that we would have spent is now being spent trying to track this down and those types of things. But that's not what DAVO does. So sharing the results here, looks like 1 out of 3 respondents today has actually had to pay a penalty of some sort, either for them or their clients. So the DAVO being able to save that from the, save the customer from themselves is a huge win for tracking down those notices and dealing with the various states. So, all right. So let's continue on here.
Okay. So basically to continue on with, and I'll show you a demo. Maybe we could jump into the demo just to finish on Bookkeep. Bookkeep, as compared to others out there we have come into this with the real mindset of accountants. So we started as accountants. We have more integrations than anyone else. We have all the integrations. I really believe you don't want a partial solution. There are apps out there that will connect to Shopify for you and do the Shopify part. But everyone who uses Shopify also uses PayPal. Well, Bookkeep does PayPal and Shopify. We handle all of that, the entire ecosystem, and we also have the sales tax. And we do it with proper daily summaries of your sales. A lot of our competitors did not start out as accountants. They started out as business owners, e-commerce vendors, and they just were like, well, there's a deposit in my checking account, so let me back into that deposit and create an entry. That's not really accrual accounting, and that doesn't help your clients. And even while it still works and it's fine, but when you're dealing with multiple sales channels, they're Amazon seller, they're on Shopify, you want to know, how are my sales on the day before Thanksgiving? The only place to look is QuickBooks. And the only way that's going to work is, assuming you're on multiple sales channels, and the only way that's going to work is if you post your sales on the day they happen. And so, we really believe in that. And we're actually going to have some more reporting capabilities to roll up sales across all of the sales channels. So we'll give you a reporting view at some point here this year, I believe. So anyway, that's a little bit about Bookkeep. And so let's just do a quick demo with the DAVO part. So when you log into Bookkeep, one of the great things about Bookkeep, and there's a bunch of, these are all test accounts, but showing me alerts, but you can have multiple clients in here and you can quickly switch between clients. So this is my wine store in California. It's connected to Square. Here, you can see the connection to Square. And these are all the different available apps that you can connect to. So we have more apps than any competitor out there. Someone asked who the competitors are, would be an A2X or Shogo or Cinder. I think we compare very well to all of those in terms of the connections we have and the type of postings that we do. And you can see here all those different ones. So I have Square connected, and it's really simple. We pull every day, we pull from Square all your orders. We create a perfect summary entry broken down by sales categories. We give you that mapping screen that allows you to map and subcategorize down to those sales categories as well. And so if I wanted to book, beer to a beer account, which I don't have, I could either look one up or I could actually create one here. or everything just rolls into sales, however you want to do it. But you have a lot of options. And we collect all the sales tax. So we used to collect CRV, and we did have some shipping for t-shirts. So you can see all the different sales tax rates. We dump all sales tax into one category as far as accounting is concerned. But I'm going to show you how that data gets over to DAVO. So this is one of those entries. And one of the new features that we do is all of those orders, all of those taxes, all of the detail is available to you as a download file. And very soon, some of our systems are working that way. I don't think Square is yet. Though these will be attached to the journal entry in QuickBooks. So when you go to QuickBooks and you see this perfect journal entry, or Xero, for instance, you're going to see attached to it all the source data for that summary. So if you wanted to drill down just within QuickBooks or Xero, we give you all of that data right there. You don't have to leave QuickBooks or Xero. So that's a quick demo on Bookkeep. But then what I want to show you is, so take a look. Here we have sales tax collected for yesterday. So this data was pulled by DAVO. So this is your DAVO portal. This is where when you come into Bookkeep and you decide you want to do sales tax, you're going to come here and you're going to basically, there'll be another button that'll show up and it'll say, I'd like to turn on sales tax. So then you'll end up with this portal on DAVO that we were just in. And in this portal is where you're going to do, and Don could talk to this too, but basically you're going to set up your different tax rates depending on the states that you're collecting it, not your rates, but you have to put in your logins for the tax profiles, right? So like, here's my login and password for California. Yeah, state California. So this is the login and password. And so you'll end up having to add those. That's like the onboarding process for every state you pay in. You need to have those credentials, and you'll need to add your bank account. And once that's done, it's fully automated. So DAVO, you see here, got the $74 from our sales, and this is pending withdrawal from my bank account. You can see here that from previous day's sales, this was already taken from the bank account. And we don't do this right now, but we do intend to also create journal entries into your accounting system so you can match those payment deposits, and you can basically move it to a set aside account. So it's out of your tax liability. Well, it would be basically in a DAVO holding account, so you can know how much DAVO is holding. And then eventually, once we get access to the data, when they make the filing, that's one of the great things about DAVO too. All of my filings are right here. So you can't see it when it opened, but I can download all of my filings for every state is right here at my fingertips. And with us, we're also going to eventually be posting those to your accounting platform as an attachment. So you'll see the check that was paid to the government. You'll see the attached filing, and everything is in your books. So everything's there. And just even think about like having to download and put that entry into QuickBooks and attach the sheet. Like that's, we save you that time, but we also, then you just know everything's at your fingertips within the books that you're living in every day. So it's very simple. It works really well. And I showed you Square, but if you're doing a Shopify customer, you'll probably have more states that they're selling in. You'll have more states. It'll be one single withdrawal from your checking account each day, but it'll be multiple payments. And we send them, all the details for each state. So that's basically how that works together. And what do you think? Where should we go from there, Dan?
So as far as like the setup is concerned, it really just, you provide the gateway, right, to DAVO. And then it really just boils down to, entering in their login and password for those various states. And then once that's there, you just have to, what does it take for, that information to get from you to, from Bookkeep to DAVO? Is it just in the mapping of the settings, or is it
just works? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything after that. Yeah, basically our entries, that entry that you saw, the 174 or 145, whatever it was, that was DAVO pulls the data from us every morning or every night, basically. Mm-hmm. So we collect the data, we organize it, and they pull it from us. So as long as your apps are connected to our platform, we're responsible for making sure that data is available to DAVO, and yeah, it basically just works.
Yeah, I think the idea, I was just going to say, the idea is that this just works in the background. It's not something you have to actively manage. That's really the philosophy behind DAVO. We want this to be, it just works, right? You have enough going on with your lives. So do your merchants. Just let's take this off your hands, right? And I think Bookkeep is focused on the same thing, right? Try to take the manual entries and the various things that you're doing, automate it, have it work in the background. And then when you need the information, it's there, right? That's not fair, Jason.
One of the things that I really like about, with Bookkeep and Don had mentioned this on our prior, Power Hour, is those daily sales emails that Bookkeep sends, right? Those can be like kind of customized and used as okay, well, this is how my clients are doing. And, I can see, this growing and being like, okay, we've impounded, X amount of dollars, for you, for your sales tax, so that, they know, not just the client or the customer, but also the accounting representative, the accounting professional can see that these things are taking place for them, and knowing, that way they can manage their clients as opposed to managing the data that comes in all the time and just kind of being the shepherd.
Accounting is becoming data flow management. And I didn't even say that. I was on another webinar with Donna Reed and Don Brolin, and they said that was their term. It's data flow management is really what accounting is going to become. And which is great because, we'll help you manage these data flows, and other companies do as well. And then you really just need to check it, make sure it's running, make sure everything's connected, make sure it reconciles at the end of the month, and which will save you a lot of time, and you won't have to understand the intricacies. So that is where accounting is moving towards. And then, of course, a lot of AI tools will eventually be, in those data flows to help make decisions on how things should be routed. And we're already using some of those ourselves. So that's really where I think the industry is going. I don't even have to think it. That's where the industry is going.
Absolutely. Michelle, and any thoughts of what you've seen here on how this all kind of plays together?
I think it's awesome, but Kathy did have a really good question here, and I was just typing an answer to it. She wants to know if there's a sample company or a sample file, because, this is a quick demo and overview, but what she's saying is, unfortunately, it never seems to work as easy as that. And what I was going to suggest to her is to contact you all for a one-on-one demo, and then to ask you guys to show not only how it works when everything is working perfectly, but to give you guys some examples, like show me what happens when there's a return or when a client has messed something up. How do I fix it? To give you guys some examples of mistakes that happen and how do we fix those, and how does that work when things don't work quite right? How do we as accountants, track it down and fix it and things like that, to have a one-on-one demo with us to show us, how does that work and how do we fix it from the accountant's perspective when things don't go right? How do we track it down and how do we fix those things?
One of the issues is I know my sales team too wants me to have that. It's very hard for us to have a sample company because our app is between your QuickBooks and your Square or your Shopify. I can't create fake Shopify and I can't curate fake orders. So that's why I'm happy to show my demo of my store and see how the data flows. But actually, an important point, Michelle, when customers do things wrong, it always comes out in our numbers, and our numbers are going to balance, but they can't really do things wrong if they're using a Shopify or a Square. Shopify, yes, we've definitely, and you're going to catch them in our platform, which you're not going to see them if you're not using our platform. There are capabilities of editing orders in Shopify that will cause misbalances in our numbers. So you'll catch it that way, which will actually show up in an unreconciled account or unbalanced. There's ways in Shopify that you can close an order and not get paid for it, which you're also going to catch using Bookkeep that you would never know if you didn't use Bookkeep. Square just works. It's very hard for them to screw anything up in Square. Maybe if they're using invoicing, but it is important. Yes, we catch those errors when it's daily sales reconciliation. So if the numbers are not matching in our system, you're going to see it when you reconcile your books. And we reconcile them for you daily to make sure that your deposits match your sales.
Yeah. Well, and
throughout the last poll question so that people could opt into learning more about it so that you guys can follow up with a more in-depth conversation. But go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I loved is, Don, when you were showing that, not only do you have that entry, but then you have the numbers that go along with it attached to that entry, and I think as accountants, we always love that when it's just right there. So we don't have to go looking for it. It's just right there with that entry. So I think that's always awesome. You make it easy for us to see it there. So Jason, you've got it where it always reconciles and it always balances. And Don, you've got the numbers right there supporting it and stuff. So, you guys made it as easy as it possibly can be, for us, the accounting professionals, so that's why, you guys have just taken something that can be so hard and pull your hair out, and you've just made it so easy for us.
And
I love it.
Thanks, Michelle. And I would say, I also want to say, it's a partnership. Part of the reason we make this data available is Square changes their APIs. Customers do things that we've never seen before. So we're in this together. Sometimes people get mad at us. Hey, this entry didn't post because it's unbalanced. Well, here's the detail here. We also have the detail. We will quickly look at that and we'll change our code if it's our code, or maybe we're going to identify that customer did something we've never seen before. We're in this together. Like understanding how Square, Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, PayPal all fit together is not easy. This is all we do all day, but we're, I can't say we're not perfect, obviously, but it's also because we're dealing with these systems that change. And so we're kind of all in this together. So we kind of think of ourselves as like, we want to be your team member for this part of the business, the revenue accounting side. So, but you got to look at us as team members. Like sometimes things don't post and yes, we will fix it. And we do have the ability to make edits. So like if there was something wrong and our numbers were off for some reason, or there was a bug, or I don't know, you can come in and change these numbers as needed, and it will then repost to accounting. Of course, you can go into your accounting system and we also link directly to the journal entry. I don't have my login set up, but you can go directly into Xero. I won't do it, and go directly to that entry from our system as well. So yes, it is a partnership for sure in this whole journey.
Yeah. So a couple questions that I see people popping up. Like, do you have to have Bookkeep and DAVO in order for this to work? So if you want to pop back over to the slides where you talk about, the pricing and and for Bookkeep, and then how it works with DAVO.
As Don will tell you, you can go directly to DAVO. If you just have a client on Square and you're not using Bookkeep, you can connect to DAVO directly. Where really I think the value comes is if you're using Bookkeep for all your clients, then you can turn on DAVO and you can manage it all through Bookkeep. And of course, the other piece of value is that DAVO doesn't work with Shopify directly or some of these e-commerce platforms. So the only way to work with DAVO is through Bookkeep for some of these e-commerce platforms. So the pricing for Bookkeep, the base pricing for Bookkeep is this. It's based off of, if you become a partner, we have some other lower price plans depending on the size of the business. It's basically based off the revenue of the business or how many sales channels they're using. It's not based on orders, because you can't, if it was a coffee shop, they're going to do, 200, 300, 400 orders a day of $5 coffee. Like we don't want to base it off orders. And then the sales tax pricing for the DAVO, which is an add-on feature, is basically going to be more or less $89 per location. That includes 3 sales tax filings. So the location, it can get a little complicated, but essentially if you're an e-commerce business, it's going to be $89, gives you 3 states you can file in basically. But if you're selling in maybe 5 more states, it'll be $29 per additional filing. Now that's only on the filings that get done every month, because some states are not every month. So it could change monthly, but it's around about these pricing, which is definitely much cheaper than having to do this with hours worked and more accurate.
Right.
So yeah, that's basically
and your billing is all done through Bookkeep, right? So like when you're activating DAVO, through Bookkeep, then it's just all one billing through Bookkeep, and that way they don't have like 2 separate things to manage as far as adding on DAVO and inclusive of Bookkeep, right?
Exactly. You can, if you sign up for DAVO through Bookkeep and it goes through Bookkeep, the bill, it'll all be on one bill. And Bookkeep has partner pricing. The partner pricing doesn't apply to the DAVO piece, but it does apply to those first prices, the base prices. If you become a partner, as an accounting firm, you can become a partner. You can earn 20% discounts, or you can earn a 20% residual. Once you get to 3 businesses on Bookkeep, you can earn those savings as well. So you can have a single rolled up bill for all your clients at a discount, or you can have your clients pay individually and we will send you a residual every month. In fact, I just sent some out just before this call.
Got it. All right. Well, you timed that right on the top of the hour. So I appreciate you both joining us here today. Any closing thoughts that you had, Jason or Don?
Don, you go. I think I've talked the whole time.
Yeah, you did great. It's always fun to see someone else present DAVO. I don't get to do that often, right? But you did great. Yeah, I think we're very excited about the Bookkeep partnership, and it is a tight partnership. Our development teams and our support teams work very closely together, and it's been great so far. We do look at this as really the best version of DAVO working with Bookkeep. So just trying to get the most automation you can do, the best way to bring all these pieces together and make your jobs easier by going to one place to get all the data. It's great. So, try it out.
Great.
Jason, right. Any final thoughts, or Michelle?
I think that's great.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you both for taking something that can be so complex and challenging and making it easy. And I mean, one of you, I can't remember which one, said, about the $700 penalty. I mean, not only, you're taking something complex, but it also, if you mess it up, it can be costly. Even just missing the deadline by a few seconds or a day can be costly. So you've taken something complex and costly if you mess it up, and you've made it easy for us. So thank you very much. And thanks for joining us today. I thought this was great. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. And we'll hope to see you next time on the QB Power Hour in a couple of weeks. Have a great one.
Thanks, Dan.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.